The bright lights of Kepler Station hummed softly as 8-year-old Hyunwoo Park bounced his red ball against the metal wall. The station was busy today, filled with aliens and humans walking through the long hallways. His father, Jeho Park, was in another boring meeting with alien diplomats, so Hyunwoo had to wait in the civilian area. The boy threw his ball higher this time, watching it bounce off the ceiling before catching it. Around him, different species moved about their business. Some had blue skin, others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few walked on 4 legs. Hyunwoo had grown up seeing aliens, so they did not scare him anymore. "Be careful with that ball," called Dr. Sujin Lee from her medical station nearby. She was checking supplies and smiled at the boy. "You do not want to hit anyone." Hyunwoo nodded and continued playing, but he was getting bored. The ball felt heavy in his small hands. He decided to throw it one more time, really high to see. If he could catch it without looking, the red ball flew up, hit the ceiling hard, and bounced in a direction Hyunwoo did not expect. It rolled across the floor, moving fast toward the main walkway where important-looking aliens were walking in a group. Hyunwoo ran after his ball, his small feet making soft sounds on the metal floor. He could see the ball rolling toward some very tall aliens wearing dark uniforms with shiny metal pieces. They looked important and scary, but Hyunwoo just wanted his ball back. The ball stopped right at the feet of the biggest alien. This one was much taller than any human, with gray skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. His uniform had many colorful marks that showed he was very important. His name was Commander Vextal, though Hyunwoo did not know this. "Excuse me, sir," Hyunwoo said politely, just like his father taught him. "Can I have my ball back, please?" "Commander." Vextal looked down at the small human child with disgust. In his world, humans were nothing special. They were weak and unimportant. How dare this tiny creature interrupt him and his important business? The other aliens in Vextal's group stopped walking. Some looked uncomfortable, but none of them said anything. They knew better than to question their commander. "You dare to interrupt me, little beast?" Vextal's voice was deep and scary. His yellow eyes burned with anger. "Do you not know who I am?" Hyunwoo stepped back, suddenly afraid. The alien's voice was much louder than he expected. "I am sorry, sir. I just want my ball back. My father is waiting for me." This made Vextal even angrier. He did not care about the child's father or anyone else. In the Dominion Empire, his word was law. If he wanted to punish someone, no one could stop him. "Your father should teach you better manners," Vextal said, lifting his armored hand. "Since he has failed, I will teach you myself." Before anyone could react, Vextal's metal gauntlet struck Hyunwoo across the face with terrible force. The sound echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. The small boy flew backward and hit the wall hard before falling to the floor completely. Still, blood ran from Hyunwoo's nose and mouth. His eyes were closed and he was not moving at all. The red ball rolled slowly past his still body. Dr. Sujin Lee screamed and ran toward the boy. Other humans in the area rushed forward too, but the alien guards blocked their way with their weapons. "What have you done?" Dr. Lee shouted at Vextal as she knelt beside Hyunwoo. Her hands shook as she checked for his heartbeat. "He is just a child." Vextal looked at the unconscious boy without any feeling. "I taught it respect. Perhaps other humans will learn from this example." "You could have killed him." Dr. Lee was crying now as she carefully lifted Hyunwoo's head. Blood was still coming from his nose and his breathing was very weak. "That would have been no great loss," Vextal replied coldly. "Humans breed like insects anyway." Dr. Lee called for help on her communicator while trying to stop the bleeding. Other humans gathered around, but the alien guards kept them away. From Vextal and his group, within minutes, Jeho Park arrived running. When he saw his son lying unconscious and bloody on the floor, his face went white with shock and fear. "Hyunwoo?" Jeho dropped to his knees beside his son. "What happened? Who did this?" Dr. Lee pointed at Commander Vextal, who was still standing nearby like nothing important had happened. "That alien officer struck your son. We need to get Hyunwoo to the medical center immediately." Jiho looked at Vextel with pure anger. He wanted to attack the alien, but he knew the guards would kill him. Instead, he helped Dr. Lee carefully lift his son and carry him to the medical center. As they rushed through the hallways, other humans, and even some aliens, stopped to stare. Word spread quickly about what had happened. Some aliens looked shocked, but others just looked away and continued walking. In the medical center, Dr. Lee worked desperately to save Hyun-woo's life. The boy had serious head injuries and internal bleeding. His small body had not been built to survive a blow from an armored alien hand. Ho sat beside his son's bed, holding the boy's small hand and praying he would wake up. Machines beeped around them, keeping track of Hyun-woo's weak heartbeat. "Will he be okay?" Jiho asked Dr. Lee. "I do not know," she said honestly. "The damage is very bad. Even if he lives, he might never be the same." Jiho closed his eyes and tried not to cry. His only son, his precious boy, might die because an alien was angry about a ball rolling near his feet. Hours later, when station security finally came to take Jiho's statement about what happened, they brought bad news. "Commander Vextel is a high-ranking officer in the Dominion Empire," the security chief explained. "According to their laws, he has the right to discipline any lower species that shows disrespect." Lower species? Jiho could not believe what he was hearing. "My son is 8 years old." He asked politely for his ball back. "I understand your anger," the security chief said, "but legally there is nothing we can do. The Dominion Council considers this a closed matter." "A closed matter?" Jiho stood up, his hands shaking with rage. "They nearly killed my child, and you call it a closed matter? I'm sorry, my hands are tied by interstellar law." That night, Jiho sat beside his son's bed and sent a message to Earth. He told them exactly what had happened. He described how an alien officer had struck down a human child for no reason, except pure cruelty. He did not know that his message would change everything. He did not know that humans across the galaxy would read his words and feel the same burning anger he felt. He did not know that Admiral Dong-Hyun Kim was already preparing for war. All Jiho knew was that his son lay dying, and no one seemed to care except other humans. In his hospital bed, Hyun-woo breathed slowly through the machines keeping him alive. His red ball sat on the table beside him, waiting for him to wake up and play again. But across human space, something else was waking up. Something that had been sleeping since humans first reached for the stars. Something that would not rest until justice was done. Admiral Dong-Hyun Kim was eating breakfast when the message arrived. He was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes, someone who had seen many wars. But when he read Jiho Park's report about what happened to little Hyun-woo, his coffee cup shook. In his hands, the Admiral read the message 3 times. Each time, his anger grew stronger. He had grandchildren the same age as Hyun-woo. The thought of an alien striking any human child made his blood burn. "Captain Jae-Sung-yoon," he called. To his aide, "Get me President Choi immediately, and send this message to every human fleet commander in the galaxy." Captain Yoon was a young officer who had served under Admiral Kim for 5 years. He had never seen his commander look so angry. "Sir, what should I tell them?" "Tell them a Dominion officer nearly killed a human child. Tell them we might be going to war." While Admiral Kim made his calls, the news was spreading through human space faster than any ship could travel. On Mars, construction workers stopped building to read the story. On the mining stations near Jupiter, miners put down their tools and stared at their screens in shock. On the farming worlds in the Centauri system, families gathered around their computers to hear about 8-year-old Hyun-woo Park. Parents held their own children closer and wondered what they would do if aliens hurt their babies. President Min-ho Choi was in his office on Earth when Admiral Kim's call came through. The president was a careful man who always tried to solve problems with words instead of weapons. But when he heard what happened to Hyun-woo, even he felt his peaceful nature crack. "How bad are the boy's injuries?" President Choi asked. "Doctor Lee says he might not wake up," Admiral Kim replied. "And if he does, he might have brain damage for the rest of his life." President Choi closed his eyes. He had met Jiho Park many times. The man was a good diplomat who worked hard for peace between species. His son was an innocent child who had done nothing wrong. What is the Dominion saying about this? They say their officer acted within his legal rights. They are calling it a minor cultural misunderstanding. Cultural misunderstanding? President Choi felt anger rise in his chest. They nearly killed a child and call it a misunderstanding? Mr. President, every human fleet in the galaxy is asking for orders. If you give the word, we can have the largest armada in history ready within a week. President Choi took a deep breath. He did not want war, but sometimes peaceful men had to fight to protect the innocent. Send a diplomatic message to the Dominion. Council first. Demand they hand over Commander Vextel for trial under human justice. Give them 48 hours to respond. And if they refuse? Then we show them what happens when someone hurts our children. Across the galaxy, human ships began moving. Captain Insu Beek ordered his heavy cruiser to leave its patrol route and head for the rally point. General Haijin Kong pulled her special forces back from training exercises. Dr. Byung-ho Lim locked himself in his laboratory and began working on weapons that could crack Dominion armor on Kepler Station. Jiho Park sat beside his son's bed and watched the machines keep the boy alive. Dr. Sujin Lee checked on Hyen Wu every hour, but there was no change. The boy remained unconscious, breathing slowly through tubes. Any word from Earth? Dr. Lee asked softly. President Choi is trying diplomacy first, Jiho said, though his voice showed he did not expect it to work. And if diplomacy fails? Jiho looked at his son's pale face and the bandages covering his head. Then I think the Dominion is going to learn something about humans they never knew before. In the Dominion capital, Supreme Chancellor Thexmar received President Choi's diplomatic message and laughed. The Dominion controlled over 300 star systems. They commanded dozens of species and millions of ships. Humans had one homeworld. And a few colonies? They want us to hand over Commander Vextel? Chancellor Thexmar asked his advisors. For striking a human child? Their message seems very serious, one advisor said carefully. Perhaps we should consider some form of compensation. Compensation? The Chancellor's voice grew cold. We do not negotiate with inferior species. Send a reply telling them that Commander Vextel acted properly according to our laws. If they do not like it, they can try to do something about it. The Dominion's reply reached Earth 12 hours later. President Choi read it twice, then called Admiral Kim. They refused to hand over Vextel. They also say that human children should be taught better manners, and that we should be grateful they are allowing us to exist in their galaxy. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. What are your orders, Mr. President? Mobilize everything. We have send messages to every human colony, every mining station, every ship. Tell them what the Dominion said about our children. Sir, this could mean total war. Good, President Choi said, and his voice was harder than Admiral Kim had ever heard it. Maybe it is time the galaxy learned that humans are not as weak as we look. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. Human colonies that had been peaceful for decades began building warships. Miners turned their asteroid-breaking equipment into weapons. Scientists shared research they had been keeping secret for years. Captain Moon Young-on abandoned her exploration mission and turned her ship toward Earth. Admiral So Young-han called in favors from alien species who owed humans their lives. Colonel Taemin SEO gathered his special forces and began planning missions that would make the Dominion regret ever hearing the word human. But the most important response came from ordinary human families. Parents looked at their children and imagined them lying in hospital beds like Hyen Wu Park. They thought about alien officers striking their babies and calling it legal on the farming world of New Korea. Young mother Yoon Young-oh held her 2-year-old daughter and cried. Then she called the recruitment office and volunteered for military service on the research station orbiting Saturn. Dr. Yoojin Nam stopped her physics experiments and began designing new types of starship engines. If humans were going to war, they would need every advantage they could get in the asteroid mining belt. Workers like Chang Min Ru began converting their rock-crushing ships into warships. They had the tools to break apart asteroids the size of mountains. Dominion ships would be much easier targets. By the end of the first day, over 1 million humans had volunteered for military service. By the end of the week, that number had grown to 10 million. Factory workers became shipbuilders. Teachers became intelligence analysts. Farmers became soldiers. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Other species watched in amazement. As humanity transformed itself from a peaceful, scattered civilization into a unified war machine in less than a week, even species that were allies of the Dominion began to worry. They had always seen humans as weak and divided. But the attack on Hyanwu Park had awakened something in humanity that no one expected on Kepler Station. Little Hyanwu still lay unconscious. Dr. Lee checked his monitors and saw slight improvements. His brain activity was getting stronger. "I think he might wake up soon," she told Jeho. "Good," Jeho said, holding his son's hand. "I want him to see justice done." Neither of them knew that across the galaxy, millions of humans were preparing to deliver that justice personally. Dr. Byung-ho Lam had not slept for 3 days. In his laboratory deep beneath the surface of Mars, he worked on weapons that would make the Dominion wish they had never heard of humanity. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he did not care. Every time he felt tired, he thought about 8-year-old Hyanwu Park lying in that hospital bed. "Doctor, you need to rest," his assistant said from the doorway. "Rest?" Dr. Lim looked up from his work with red eyes. "There will be time to rest after we make the aliens pay for what they did." The weapon he was building had never been tested. It used technology that most species thought was impossible. But humans had always been good at doing impossible things when they were angry enough. Across the solar system, Admiral So Young-han was coordinating the largest military movement in human history. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of star systems were converging on Earth. Mining vessels, exploration ships, and cargo haulers were all being converted into warships. "How many ships do we have now?" she asked her aide. "Over 15,000, Admiral, and more arriving every hour." Admiral Han looked at the display showing ship positions throughout human space. It looked like every human ship in the galaxy was moving toward Earth. "Good. The Dominion thinks we are weak because we only have one homeworld. They are about to learn that our strength does not come from the number of our planets." In the Centauri system, Colonel Taemin SEO was training soldiers who had been civilians just days ago. Farmers, teachers, and shopkeepers were learning to use weapons and fight in space. They were not professional soldiers, but they had something more powerful than training. They had rage. "Remember," Colonel Seo told his new recruits, "we are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting because they hurt a child. Every alien who stands against us needs to understand that humans protect their young." The training was hard, but no one complained. These people had volunteered to leave their families and fight aliens who were bigger and stronger than humans. They did it because they could not stand the thought of alien officers striking human children and calling it legal. Meanwhile, engineer Yujin Nam was working day and night to build new types of starships. Her designs were different from anything humans had built before. They were faster, stronger, and carried weapons that could punch through Dominion armor like paper. "These ships are beautiful," Captain Woojin Park said as he watched the construction. He was Jiho Park's brother, and he had volunteered to fight the moment he heard what happened to his nephew. "They are not meant to be beautiful," Yujin replied. "They are meant to make aliens regret hurting our children." Captain Park nodded. He had been a cargo ship captain before this war started. Now he was learning to command a warship that could destroy entire alien fleets. "When will they be ready?" 2 more weeks. Then we can show the Dominion what human engineering can do when we are properly motivated. Across the galaxy, other species were starting to notice what humans were doing. The peaceful Etherians sent messages asking if they could help. The merchant Vorthan Collective offered to sell weapons to humans at very low prices, even some Dominion. Client species began sending secret messages to human commanders. They were tired of being ruled by aliens who thought violence was the answer to everything. Ambassador Yoon Young-oh was busy meeting with these alien representatives. She had been a kindergarten teacher before the war started, but now she was convincing entire species to switch sides. "The Dominion calls you allies," she told a group of spiral-armed delegates. "But do they treat you like equals? Or do they treat you like servants who should be grateful for their protection?" The aliens looked uncomfortable. They knew she was right. The Dominion had never treated them as equals. They were expected to obey orders and provide ships for Dominion. "Wars. What are you offering instead?" one of them asked. "Partnership," Ambassador O said simply. "Humans do not want to rule you. We want to work with you to build a galaxy where no one strikes children and calls it legal." Back on Earth, President Min-ho Choi was receiving reports from all over human space. The numbers were staggering. Humans were building ships faster than anyone thought possible. Volunteers were joining the military in numbers that broke all records. "Mr. President," Admiral Kim said during their daily briefing, "we now have more volunteers than we can train. People are leaving everything behind to join this fight. And the Dominion, they are mobilizing too, but slowly. They think this is just another small war. They do not understand what they have awakened." President Choi looked out his window at the construction yards orbiting Earth. Thousands of ships were being built simultaneously. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "Any word from Hyun-woo? Dr. Lee says he is getting stronger." "He might wake up soon." "Good. When he wakes up, I want him to see that humanity did not forget what was done to him." On Kepler Station, Jiho Park was reading messages from humans all over the galaxy. Thousands of people had written to tell him they were fighting for his son. Parents, grandparents, and children had all promised that Commander Vextal would face justice. Dr. Sujin Lee checked Hyun-woo's condition and smiled. "His brain activity is much better today. I think he will wake up soon. Will he be okay?" "He will have some problems for a while, but children heal better than adults. Give him time." Jiho squeezed his son's hand. "Hear that, Hyun-woo? You are going to be fine. And when you wake up, the whole galaxy will be different." In the Dominion capital, Supreme Chancellor Thexmar was receiving reports about human military buildup. His advisors looked worried, but he was not concerned. "So they are building ships," he said with a laugh. "We have been building ships for 1,000 years. We control hundreds of systems." "How many do they control?" "Officially only about 20. Chancellor, but our intelligence suggests they have secret bases and hidden shipyards throughout the galaxy." "Hidden shipyards?" The Chancellor's laugh was not as confident now. "How could they hide shipyards from us?" "Humans are very good at keeping secrets, sir. They have been exploring space longer than most species realize." "It does not matter. We will crush them like insects and teach the galaxy what happens when inferior species challenge the Dominion." But privately, Chancellor Thexmar was starting to worry. The reports he was getting suggested that humans were not behaving like other species the Dominion had conquered. Other species fought for their homeworlds or their resources. Humans seemed to be fighting for something else entirely. Commander Vextal was still on his ship, proud of what he had done to the human child. He had received a medal from the Dominion Council for maintaining order among inferior species. He wore it proudly and told everyone who would listen about how he had taught humans respect. He did not know that Captain Jae-sung-yoon had already marked his ship for special attention. When the war started, Vextal would be one of the first targets. The human captain wanted to have a personal conversation with the alien who had struck a child across human space. The preparations continued. Scientists shared research that had been classified for decades. Engineers built ships using designs that pushed the limits of known physics. Soldiers trained with weapons that could cut through Dominion armor like butter. But most importantly, every human in the galaxy now knew the name Hyun-woo Park. They knew what had been done to him. And they knew that the Dominion called it legal. That knowledge was spreading to other species too. Even aliens who had never met humans began to understand that something unprecedented was happening. A species was going to war not for territory or resources, But because someone had hurt their child, the galaxy had never seen anything like it. And soon, the Dominion would learn that some things were more dangerous than armies or weapons. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the universe was a parent whose child had been hurt. 2 weeks after the incident at Kepler Station, the largest fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Dominion capital system. 25,000 human ships of all sizes hung in space like a metal cloud. From tiny fighters to massive battleships, they formed a wall of steel and determination that stretched across the star system. Admiral Dong-Hyun Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Righteous Fury, and looked at the Dominion homeworld in the distance. It was a beautiful planet with blue oceans and white clouds, home to billions of aliens who thought humans were weak and inferior. "Admiral," Captain Insubik reported, "all ships are in position. We are receiving surrender requests from Dominion. Patrol ships throughout the system." "Let them run," Admiral Kim said calmly. "We are not here for them. We are here for justice." The sight of the human fleet had shocked everyone in the system. Dominion ships that had seemed powerful now looked tiny compared to the human armada. Some alien captains had taken one look at the approaching humans and immediately fled to other star systems on the planet below. Supreme Chancellor Thexmar stared at the display screens in disbelief. His military advisors were running around in panic, but he could not move. How had the humans built such a massive fleet in just 2 weeks? "Sir," one of his aides said nervously, "the humans are broadcasting a message." "Put it on the main screen," the Chancellor ordered. Admiral Kim's face appeared on screens throughout the Dominion capital. He was a big man with gray hair and cold eyes that showed no mercy. When he spoke, his voice was calm but filled with the promise of destruction. "People of the Dominion," Admiral Kim began, "2 weeks ago, your officer Commander Vextal struck a human child and nearly killed him. When we demanded justice, you laughed at us. You called us inferior and told us to be grateful for your protection." The Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. "You were wrong about us. We are not inferior, we are not weak. And we will not allow anyone to hurt our children and call it legal." Throughout the Dominion capital, aliens stopped what they were doing to listen. They had never heard a human speak with such authority before. "We have 3 demands," Admiral Kim continued. "First, you will hand over Commander Vextal to face trial under human justice. Second, the Dominion Council will issue a formal apology to the family of Hyunwoo Park and all humans. Third, you will immediately recognize the equal rights of all species in your territory." The Admiral's expression grew harder. "You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will take what we came for by force. And I promise you, the galaxy will remember what happens when someone hurts our children." The transmission ended, leaving the Dominion capital in shocked silence. Chancellor Thexmar felt his hands shaking. No species had ever spoken to the Dominion like that before. The arrogance in the human's voice made him angry, but the size of their fleet made him afraid. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his military commander. "Our count shows over 25,000 vessels, sir. Many of them are using technology we do not recognize." 25,000? The Chancellor could not believe it. The Dominion's entire military had maybe 15,000 ships, and they were scattered across hundreds of star systems. "What are your orders, sir?" Chancellor Thexmar looked at the reports again. The humans had built this fleet in 2 weeks. If they could do that, what else were they capable of? "Send a message to all Dominion fleets," he ordered. "Tell them to converge on the capital immediately. And contact our allies. We need every ship they can spare." "Yes, sir." "And what should we tell the humans?" The Chancellor's pride warred with his fear. The Dominion had ruled this part of the galaxy for centuries. They could not bow to humans just because they had built a big fleet. Tell them that the Dominion does not negotiate with inferior species. If they want a war, they can have one. On the human flagship, Ambassador Yoon-Young-oh shook her head sadly as she received the Dominion's response. She had hoped they would see reason, but she had not really expected it. "They refuse all our demands," she reported to Admiral Kim. They are calling us inferior species and saying they will destroy our fleet. Are you surprised? Admiral Kim asked. No, but I had to. Try diplomacy first. Now we do this the hard way. Throughout the human fleet, captains were reading the Dominion's response to their crews. On every ship, humans who had been peaceful civilians just weeks ago prepared for war. Captain Woo Jin Park addressed his crew on the converted cargo ship. Soul's Pride. These men and women had been farmers and shopkeepers before volunteering to fight for Hyunwoo Park. The Dominion thinks we are inferior, Captain Park told them. They think humans are weak because we prefer peace to war. They are about to learn that peaceful people can be the most dangerous enemies of all, his crew cheered. They knew this. War might cost them their lives, but they could not live with themselves if they let aliens hurt human children without consequences on the planet below. Ordinary Dominion citizens were beginning to panic. They had always been told that their military was invincible. But the human fleet hanging over their world suggested otherwise. Some aliens began protesting in the streets, demanding that their government hand over Commander Vextel and apologize to the humans. They did not want to die in a war over one officer's cruelty, but other aliens supported their government. They believed the Dominion was superior to all other species, including humans. The idea of apologizing to inferior humans made them angry. Commander Vextel himself was on a military base on the planet's surface. He had been promoted and decorated for his actions at Kepler Station. The Dominion Council had called him a hero for maintaining order among lesser species. Let the humans come, he boasted to other officers. I will strike down as many of their children as necessary to teach them respect. He did not know that Captain Jae Seung-yoon was listening to every word through human intelligence networks. The human captain had special plans for Commander Vextel when the fighting started. As the 72-hour deadline approached, both sides prepared for war. Dominion ships began arriving from other star systems, but they came slowly and in small groups. The human fleet remained united and ready. Dr. Byung-ho Lim made final adjustments to the new weapon systems. Engineer Yoo-jin Nam checked the engines on ships that could move faster than anything the Dominion had ever seen. Colonel Taemin Seo prepared his soldiers for ground combat on alien worlds, but the most important preparation was happening in a small medical center on Kepler Station. Dr. Soo-jin Lee was checking on her patient when Hyunwoo Park's eyes finally opened. Where am I? The boy asked weakly. You are safe, Dr. Lee said with tears in her eyes. You have been sleeping for 2 weeks, but you are going to be okay. Hyunwoo tried to sit up but felt dizzy. My head hurts. Where is my father? He is here with you. And Hyunwoo, something important is happening because of what was done to you. Humans all over the galaxy are fighting to make sure no one ever hurts a child like you were hurt. The boy did not understand all of this, but he could see that Dr. Lee was crying happy tears. Did I do something good? You did not do anything at all, Dr. Lee said. But your pain has awakened something in humanity that the galaxy has never seen before. When Ji-ho Park heard that his son was awake, he ran to the medical center faster than he had ever run before. Holding Hyunwoo in his arms again felt like a miracle. Father, why is everyone so excited? Hyunwoo asked. Oh, looked at his son, and tried to find words that an 8-year-old would understand. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. But when they do, other good people work together to make sure it never happens again. Are we the good people? Yes, son, we are the good people. As the deadline approached its final hours, both fleets prepared for battle. The Dominion had managed to gather about 8,000 ships to defend their capital. It was still a powerful force, but nothing compared to the human armada waiting in space. Admiral Kim received a final message from Earth. President Troy's words were simple. Bring our children justice. The 72 hours ended with no response from the Dominion except defiance. Admiral Kim looked at the planet below and thought about 8-year-old Hyunwoo Park lying unconscious and bleeding on a station floor. All ships, he broadcast. To the human fleet, this is Admiral Kim. The time for words is over. Show them what happens when someone hurts our children. The first shots of the war came from Dominion ships. Chancellor Thexmar had ordered his fleet to attack the humans and destroy their pathetic armada. He still believed that humans were weak and that superior numbers would win the day. He was wrong about everything. Admiral Dong Hyen Kim watched the Dominion fleet advance and felt no emotion except cold determination. These aliens had hurt a human child and called it legal. Now they would learn the true cost of that decision. All ships, weapons free, Admiral Kim broadcast. Show them no mercy. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships that had been civilians' vessels just weeks ago now fought with coordination that amazed even experienced military officers. The conversions done by engineer Eugene Nam had turned cargo haulers into ship killers. Captain Insu Beek commanded the flagship's weapons as they targeted the lead Dominion vessel, firing main batteries. He reported calmly. The new weapons designed by Dr. Byung-ho Lim tore through Dominion shields like they were made of paper. The alien ship's armor, which had protected it in dozens of battles, cracked and split under the human assault. Impossible. The Dominion captain screamed as his ship died around him. Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy. The human weapons had been designed specifically to defeat Dominion technology. Dr. Lim had studied every piece of alien equipment he could find and built weapons that could destroy it all. Throughout the battle, human ships demonstrated abilities that shocked their enemies. Captain Moon Young-on's converted exploration vessel moved faster than any Dominion ship could follow. Captain Haewon-young's mining ship used asteroid-breaking equipment to literally tear enemy vessels apart. How are they doing this? Chancellor Thexmar demanded from his command center on the planet below. Our ships are superior to theirs. Sir, his military advisor said nervously, it appears that humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. These are not the primitive ships we expected. On the human side, Captain Woojin Park led a boarding action against a Dominion cruiser. His team of former farmers and shopkeepers fought with a fury that terrified the alien crew. Remember why. We are here, Captain Park shouted as they stormed the alien bridge. They think they can hurt our children. Show them how wrong they are. The Dominion crew surrendered within minutes. They had never faced enemies who fought with such personal rage. These humans were not professional soldiers following orders. They were parents and relatives fighting for a child they had never met but considered family. Lieutenant Commander Sung-ho Kwon demonstrated human tactical brilliance by using the gravity of the system's planets to slingshot his small fighter squadron behind enemy lines. His pilots struck Dominion command ships before anyone realized they were there. Target their communication arrays, Kwon ordered. Cut off their ability to coordinate. Within an hour of the battle's start, the Dominion fleet was in complete disarray. Ships that had seemed invincible were burning wrecks drifting through space. Others had surrendered to avoid destruction. Admiral Kim watched the tactical display and felt grim satisfaction. Status report, he requested. 60% of the Dominion fleet destroyed or disabled, Captain Beek reported. Our losses are minimal, 3 ships damaged, none destroyed. 60%? Admiral Kim had expected heavy casualties on both sides. The complete dominance his fleet was showing surprised even him. The truth was that humans had advantages the Dominion had never encountered. Human ships were built by people who understood that they might have to fight superior numbers. Every vessel was designed to punch above its weight class. More importantly, every human in the fleet was fighting for something personal. The story of Hyenwoo Park had touched something deep in human nature. These people were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for the simple principle that no one should hurt children. Colonel Taemin SEO led ground forces that landed on Dominion military bases throughout the system. His soldiers, many of whom had been peaceful civilians weeks ago, fought with skills that amazed their enemies. How did they learn to fight so well so quickly? A captured Dominion officer asked. Humans have been warriors longer than we have been anything else, Colonel SEO replied. We just usually choose not to show it. The Dominion had made the mistake of believing that peaceful people were weak people. They learned too late that humans chose peace because they knew exactly how terrible war could be done as the battle raged in space. Something else was happening throughout the Dominion Empire. Species that had been ruled by the Dominion for centuries began receiving messages from human agents. Intelligence Director Changmin Ru had spent months before the war establishing contact with oppressed species throughout Dominion space. Now those contacts were paying off. The humans are winning, the messages said. Join us and be free. On dozens of worlds, rebellions began. Species that had been forced to serve the Dominion suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. They attacked Dominion bases and declared independence under human protection. Sir, Chancellor Thexmar's aide reported, we are receiving rebellion reports from over 50 systems. Our entire empire is falling apart. The Chancellor stared at the reports in disbelief. How had humans organized this so quickly? How had they turned his own subjects against him? The answer was simple. The Dominion ruled through fear and violence. Humans offered something better, partnership and protection for the innocent. Ambassador Yun Young-oh was coordinating with rebel leaders throughout Dominion space. Her background as a teacher had taught her how to talk to people and make them feel safe. We do not want to rule you, she told each group. We want to help you rule yourselves. All we ask is that you treat children of all species with kindness. It was an offer no oppressed people could refuse. Back in the battle zone, the Dominion fleet was down to less than 30 ships. Admiral Kim could have destroyed them all, but he chose mercy. Attention remaining Dominion vessels, he broadcast. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting and be destroyed. Most of the surviving ships immediately powered down their weapons. Their captains had seen what human weapons could do and had no desire to join their destroyed comrades, but a few ships, commanded by officers too proud to surrender, continued fighting. Captain Jae-sung-yoon personally hunted down these holdouts with cold efficiency. This is for Hyeon-woo Park, Captain Yoon said as his weapons destroyed the last resisting ship. On the planet below, panic was spreading through the Dominion capital. Citizens who had believed their military was invincible now saw human ships controlling their skies. We surrender. Many aliens shouted in the streets. Please do not hurt us. Admiral Kim received these pleas and felt no satisfaction. He had not come here to hurt innocent civilians. He had come for justice. Attention people of the Dominion capital, he broadcast to the planet. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to arrest the war criminals who hurt a human child. Cooperate with us and you will not be harmed. Chancellor Thexmar was hiding in his bunker, watching his empire collapse on every screen. In less than 6 hours, the humans had destroyed his fleet, sparked rebellions across his territory, and occupied his capital system. How? He whispered. How did they do this so quickly? His military advisor looked at the reports and finally understood. Sir, I do not think they built this fleet in 2 weeks. I think they have been preparing for war much longer than we realized. The truth was even more frightening. Humans had not been preparing for this specific war. They had been preparing for the possibility that someday, someone would threaten their children. When that day came, they were ready. Commander Vextal was arrested by human marines as he tried to flee the planet. Captain Jae-sung-yoon personally placed him in handcuffs. You struck a child, Captain Yoon said quietly. Did you think there would be no consequences? Vextal, who had been so arrogant just hours before, now shook with fear. Please, he begged. I was following orders. It was legal under our law. Your law, Captain Yoon replied, is about to change. The first battle of the war was over. The Dominion's main fleet was destroyed, their capital was occupied, and rebellions were spreading throughout their empire, but Admiral Kim knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion still controlled hundreds of systems and millions of ships. This war would not end until every alien understood that humans protected their children above all else. As reports of the victory reached Earth, humans celebrated in the streets. But on Kepler Station, 8-year-old Hyeon-woo Park was still learning. To walk again after his injuries, justice had begun, but it was far from complete. 1 month after the first battle, the Dominion Empire was crumbling faster than anyone thought possible. What had seemed like an unstoppable galactic power was falling apart as species after species declared independence under human protection, intelligence. Director Chang Min-Ru worked from a captured Dominion command center, coordinating rebellions across hundreds of star systems. The intelligence networks he had built before the war were now paying off in ways that amazed even him. Report from the Spiral Arm territories, his aide announced. 17 more systems have declared independence today. They are requesting human protection fleets. Send Admiral So Young Han's task force, Chang Min ordered. Make sure they understand we are there to protect, not to rule. This was the key to humanity's success. Unlike the Dominion, which ruled through fear and force, humans offered genuine partnership to species that joined them. They did not want subjects or slaves. They wanted allies. On the world of Centauri Prime, Captain Moon Young-on was leading the liberation of Dominion slave camps. The aliens she freed had been worked nearly to death in mining operations that fed the Dominion. War Machine. You are free now, Captain On told a group of liberated prisoners. The humans will make sure no one enslaves you again. An elderly alien looked at her with tears in his eyes. Why? Why do you care what happens to us? Captain On thought about 8-year-old Hyanwu Park and the rage that had driven humanity to war. Because we believe that all children deserve to grow up free and safe. That includes your children. The freed slaves looked at each other in amazement. No one had ever offered them freedom without demanding something in return. The concept of fighting a war to protect other people's children was foreign to them, but they liked it. Special. Agent Kyung-ho Yu was operating deep behind enemy lines, convincing Dominion client species to switch sides. His job was dangerous, but his message was simple and powerful. The Dominion calls you allies, he told a gathering of rebel leaders on the planet Kepler-7. But do they treat you like equals? Do they ask your opinion before making decisions that affect your worlds? The aliens shifted uncomfortably. They knew the answer. The Dominion had never treated them as anything more than useful servants. What do humans offer instead? One rebel asked. Equal partnership in building a galaxy where all species can live in peace, where no one's children are struck down for asking politely for their ball back. The story of Hyanwu Park had spread throughout the galaxy by now. Even aliens who had never met humans understood that this war was about protecting the innocent fleet. Admiral Sun Hee-jang was commanding the siege of major Dominion strongholds throughout their empire. Her fleets did not attack civilian targets, but they cut off all military supplies and reinforcements to Dominion forces. Admiral, her communications officer reported, the Dominion base on Rigel is requesting terms for surrender. Standard terms? Admiral Zhang replied. Military personnel will be treated as prisoners of war. Civilian populations will be protected. Any who wish to join us voluntarily are welcome. This approach was demoralizing Dominion forces throughout the galaxy. They had expected humans to be as cruel as they were. Instead, humans were showing mercy to defeated enemies and protection to innocent civilians. Many Dominion officers began surrendering rather than fighting hopeless battles against enemies who would treat them fairly. Diplomatic Corps Chief Young Suk Shin was working around the clock to establish new governments in liberated territories. Her job was to help former Dominion subjects learn how to govern themselves. Remember, she told a group of newly elected alien leaders, democracy means everyone has a voice. Even species you do not like, even people who disagree with you. But what if they make bad decisions? One alien asked. Then you convince them to make better ones. You do not strike them down or silence them by force. It was a difficult concept for species that had lived under Dominion rule for generations. But humans were patient teachers, and most aliens were eager to learn. On Earth, President Min-ho Choi was receiving reports that seemed too good to be true. How many systems have joined us now? He asked Admiral Kim during their daily briefing. Over 200, Mr. President, and more declaring independence every day. The Dominion has lost nearly half their territory in just 1 month. Casualties? Surprisingly light on all sides? Most Dominion forces are surrendering rather than fighting. It seems they were not as loyal to their government as their leaders believed. President Choi nodded. People do not fight hard for governments that rule them through fear, but they will die for governments that protect their children. The truth was that the Dominion had made themselves vulnerable by being cruel rulers. They had assumed that fear would keep their subjects loyal, but fear also bred resentment. When humans offered a better alternative, whole populations switched sides almost overnight. Commander Vextal, the alien who had started the war by striking Hyun-woo, was being held in a human prison ship. Unlike Dominion prisons, this one was clean and the guards treated prisoners with basic dignity. "Why do you not torture me?" Vextal asked Captain Jae Sung-yoon during one of their conversations. "Because we are not you," Captain Yoon replied. "Simply, we fight to protect innocence, not to cause pain." "But I hurt your child. Does that not make you angry?" "It makes me furious," Captain Yoon admitted. "But anger does not give us the right to become monsters. You will face trial for what you did, but you will be treated fairly during that trial." Vextal could not understand this concept. In Dominion culture, enemies were tortured and humiliated. The idea of treating prisoners with respect was completely foreign to him, but slowly, he was beginning to understand why the Dominion was losing this war on Kepler Station. 8-year-old Hyun-woo Park was finally strong enough to walk without help. Dr. Soo-jin Lee watched him play with other children in the station's recreation area and smiled. "He looks happy," Hyo Park said as he joined her. "Children heal quickly," Dr. Lee replied, "both physically and emotionally. In a few years, this will just be a bad memory for him. And the galaxy? The galaxy will never be the same. Your son's pain has changed everything." Hyo watched his boy laugh as he played with alien children of several different species. The other children did not care that Hyun-woo was human or that he had been hurt by an alien. They just wanted to play together. "Maybe that is how it should be," Hyo said quietly. Children of all species playing together without fear. In the war zone, Dominion resistance was collapsing everywhere. Supreme Chancellor Thexmar was trapped in his bunker while human forces controlled the space around his planet. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have lost contact with most of our outer territories. The humans have convinced nearly all our client species to rebel." "How?" the Chancellor asked desperately. "How did they turn our subjects against us so quickly?" "Sir, our intelligence suggests that humans have been establishing contacts throughout our empire for years. But more importantly, they are offering something we never offered, which is freedom, respect, protection for their children. Everything we took away from them." Chancellor Thexmar finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. By ruling through fear and cruelty, the Dominion had created millions of enemies who were just waiting for someone to offer them a better choice. When humans made that offer, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Engineer Yujin Nam was working on captured Dominion shipyards, converting them to produce human-designed vessels. The aliens who had been forced to build Dominion warships were now volunteering to build ships for their human liberators. "These humans," one alien engineer said to another, "they are not what we expected." "What do you mean?" "They could force us to work for them, but instead they ask us to volunteer. They could take our resources, but instead they offer to trade. Fairly, they could rule us, but instead they want to help us rule ourselves." "It is strange," the second alien agreed, "but I like it better than the Dominion way." Throughout the former Dominion territory, similar conversations were happening. Species that had been enemies for generations were working together under human guidance to build something new. The Etherians, who had been neutral in galactic politics for centuries, formally announced their alliance with humanity. The Vorthan Collective offered their entire merchant fleet to support human operations. Even species that had never heard of humans before were sending messages, asking to join the growing coalition against the Dominion. Captain Woojin Park, Jiho's brother, was commanding a liberation fleet in the Outer Rim territories. His ships were crewed by volunteers from dozens of different species, all united by their hatred of Dominion cruelty. "Captain," his alien communications officer reported, "the Dominion garrison on Nexus 4 is broadcasting a surrender offer." "Standard terms?" Captain Park replied. "Military personnel become prisoners, civilians are protected. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome." "Sir, they are also offering to surrender Commander Vextel as second-in-command." Apparently he was responsible for several other attacks on non-Dominion children. Captain Park's expression hardened. "We will accept his surrender, but he will face trial for his crimes." The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Humans would show mercy to defeated enemies, but they would never forget crimes again. 3 months after the war began, the Dominion capital system was under complete siege. The once mighty empire had been reduced to a handful of worlds desperately trying to survive the human onslaught. Supreme Chancellor Thexmar was trapped in his underground bunker while human ships controlled every approach to his planet. Admiral Donghyun Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the world where Commander Vextel had been born. Soon the alien who had struck a human child would face justice for his crimes. "Admiral," Captain Insubik reported, "our forces have surrounded the military complex where Vextile is hiding. Captain Yoon is requesting permission to begin the final assault." "Permission granted," Admiral Kim replied. "Tell Captain Yoon that we want Vextel alive. He needs to face trial so the galaxy can see that justice will be done." On the planet below, Captain Jae-sung Yoon led a squad of human marines through the ruins of what had once been the most powerful military base in the galaxy. The Dominion soldiers had fought hard at first, but most had surrendered when they realized their cause was hopeless. "Target building secured," reported Sergeant Wei-young Kim over the radio. "No resistance encountered." "Command center secured," added Corporal Min-soo Lee. "We found their communication equipment. Vextel knows we are coming." Captain Yoon checked his weapon and thought about 8-year-old Hyun-woo Park. The boy was finally walking normally again. But he still had nightmares about the alien who had struck him. Today, those nightmares would end. "Move in," Captain Yoon ordered his team. "Remember, we want him alive." In his hiding place deep underground, Commander Vextel listened to the sound of human footsteps getting closer. 3 months ago, he had been a proud officer of the mighty Dominion Empire. He had worn medals for striking a human child and had boasted about teaching inferior species respect. Now his empire was gone. His medals were worthless, and the inferior humans were coming to collect him. "Sir," one of his remaining guards said nervously, "maybe we should surrender. The humans have said they will treat prisoners fairly." "Surrender?" Vextel's voice was filled with rage and fear. "I am a Dominion officer. I do not surrender to insects." But even as he said the words, Vextel knew his situation was hopeless. The humans had destroyed everything he believed in. They had proven that the Dominion was not as powerful as it claimed to be. The sound of footsteps stopped outside his door. Captain Yoon's voice came through the speaker. "Commander Vextel, this is Captain Jae-sung Yoon of the Terran Defense Force. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. I will never surrender to humans." Vextel shouted back. "Then we will come in and get you," Captain Yoon replied calmly. "Your choice." The door exploded inward as human marines used shaped charges to break through the Dominion's defensive barriers. Smoke filled the room as armed figures moved through the darkness with deadly precision. Vextel tried to raise his weapon, but a human marine was already behind him. Strong hands grabbed his arms and forced him to the ground. "Commander Vextel," Captain Yoon said as he entered the room, "you are under arrest for assault on a minor, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings." Vextel looked up at the human captain with hatred and fear. "You cannot do this to me. I am a Dominion officer." "The Dominion no longer exists," Captain Yoon replied as he placed restraints on the alien's wrists. "And you are going to answer for what you did to Hyun-woo Park." As Vextile was dragged away, other human forces were capturing the last remnants of Dominion leadership. Supreme Chancellor Thexmar was found hiding in his bunker, still refusing to believe that his empire had fallen. "This is impossible," the Chancellor kept saying as human soldiers escorted him to a transport ship. "The Dominion has ruled for 1,000 years. You cannot destroy us in 3 months." "We did not destroy you," Admiral Kim told him during their first meeting. "You destroyed yourselves the moment you decided that cruelty was acceptable." "We maintained order. We kept the galaxy stable." "You kept the galaxy in fear," Admiral Kim corrected. "There is a difference." On Earth, President Min-Ho Choi was preparing for the most important trial in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of species would attend to see Commander Vextal faced justice for his crimes. "Mr. President," his legal advisor said, "we have received requests from over 50 species to serve on the tribunal. Everyone wants to be part of this. Choose representatives from species the Dominion oppressed," President Choi decided. "Let Vextal be judged by those his empire hurt." The trial was held on Kepler Station, the same place where Vextal had struck. Henwoo Park. Dr. Soo-Jin Lee had converted part of the medical center into a courtroom, so that the proceedings could take place where the crime occurred. Aliens from across the galaxy came to witness the trial. Many had traveled for weeks just to see the officer who had started the war face justice. The station was more crowded than it had ever been in its history. Jiho Park sat in the front row with his son Hyun-woo. The boy was nervous about seeing the alien who had hurt him, but his father held his hand and promised that nothing bad would happen. "Is that him?" Han-woo whispered when Vextal was brought into the courtroom. "Yes, son. But he cannot hurt you anymore." "He cannot hurt anyone anymore." The trial lasted 3 days. Witness after witness testified about Vextal's cruelty and the Dominion's systematic oppression of other species. The evidence was overwhelming, but the most powerful moment came when 8-year-old Hyun-woo Park took the stand to tell his story. "I just wanted my ball back," the boy said in a small voice. "I said please, I was polite like my father taught me. But he hit me anyway." The courtroom was completely silent as Hyun-woo described what happened. Even some of the alien spectators were crying. "Did you know that your actions would start a war?" the prosecutor asked Vextal during his testimony. "I was maintaining order," Vextal replied stubbornly. The human child was being disrespectful. He was 8 years old and asking politely for his toy. Age does not matter. Respect must be taught. "And what did you teach the galaxy with your actions?" Vextal looked around the courtroom at the hundreds of aliens staring at him with disgust. For the first time, he seemed to understand what he had done. I taught them that the Dominion was cruel," he admitted quietly. The verdict was unanimous. Vextal was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison. But this would not be a normal prison sentence. "You will spend the rest of your life helping to rebuild the worlds your empire destroyed," the chief judge announced. "Hey, you will work alongside the species you once oppressed, learning to treat them with the respect you never showed before?" It was a punishment that fit the crime. Instead of simple imprisonment, Vextal would have to confront his victims every day and work to repair the damage he had helped cause. After the trial, Admiral Kim addressed the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. "Today we have seen justice done," he said. But this trial was never about revenge. It was about showing the galaxy that actions have consequences, especially when those actions hurt the innocent. "The Dominion Empire is finished," Admiral Kim continued, "but something new is beginning. We invite all species to join us in building a galaxy where children of all races can play safely among the stars." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species after species stepped forward to pledge their support for the new galactic order. Even former Dominion officers who had not committed war crimes were welcomed as equals. Ambassador Yoon-young worked tirelessly to establish the framework for this new government. Unlike the Dominion, which had ruled through force, the new Terran Confederation would be based on voluntary cooperation and mutual respect. "Every species will have an equal voice," she explained to the assembled delegates. "Decisions will be made by consensus, not by the strongest forcing their will on the weakest. But the most important moment came when young Hyun-woo Park was invited to speak to the Galactic Assembly. The boy who had suffered so much was now a symbol of the new era beginning. "I do not want other children to be hurt like I was hurt," Hyun-woo said simply. "Can you promise that will not happen anymore?" The response was thunderous. Representatives from hundreds of species stood and applauded, promising that no child would ever again face the cruelty that Hyun-woo had endured. Dr. Soo-jin Lee watched from the medical center and smiled. The boy she had saved was now helping to save the galaxy. As the celebrations continued, Admiral Kim found a quiet moment to visit the place where it all began. He stood in the hallway where Hyun-woo had been struck down and thought about how much had changed. 3 months ago, this had been just another space station. Now it was the birthplace of a new galactic civilization based on justice and protection of the innocent. Captain Woo-jin Park joined him there. "Hard to believe it all started here," he said. "The best things often start small," Admiral Kim replied. "One child's courage can change the entire galaxy." Outside the station, the largest fleet in galactic history was dispersing to their new duties. No longer an army of conquest, they were now protectors of peace and freedom. The war was over. The real work of building a better galaxy was just beginning, and at the center of it all was the memory of a small boy asking politely for his ball back, and the determination of an entire species too. 6 months after the war ended, the galaxy was a completely different place. Where once the cruel Dominion Empire had ruled through fear, now the Terran Confederation governed through cooperation and mutual respect. The change was so dramatic that many species could hardly remember what life had been like under the old system. Secretary General Deun Kim, Admiral Kim's daughter, stood before the new Galactic Council in its first official session. Representatives from over 400 species filled the great hall that had been built on the neutral world of New Harmony. The sight still amazed her. 6 months ago, she began her speech, a small human child was struck down by an alien officer who believed that cruelty was his right. Today we gather to ensure that no child of any species will ever face such violence again. The applause was thunderous. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together as equals. The Etherians sat beside former Dominion client races. The Vorthan merchants traded jokes with human engineers. Even former Dominion officers who had renounced their empire's cruelty were welcome in the new order, on Kepler Station, now renamed Peace Station in honor of what had happened there. Ambassador Ji-ho Park was preparing for his new role as humanity's first representative to the reformed Galactic Council. His office was the same one where he had received the devastating news about his son's attack, but now it was filled with messages of friendship from across the galaxy. "Father," 12-year-old Hyun-woo said as he entered the office, "are you nervous about your new job?" Ji-ho smiled at his son. The boy had grown taller and stronger over the past months. The physical scars from his attack had healed completely, and the emotional ones were fading too. More importantly, Hyun-woo had become a symbol of hope for children throughout the galaxy. A little nervous, Ho admitted, but also excited. "We are building something that has never existed before, a galaxy where all species can live in peace. Will it work? If we all try hard enough, yes. The new galaxy will be built on the principle that your pain taught us, that protecting children is more important than any law or custom." Hyun-woo nodded seriously. Even at 12, he understood that his suffering had led to something larger than himself. Children from hundreds of worlds had written to him, thanking him for the changes his story had brought about. A new Galactic Defense Force headquarters. Admiral Dong-hyun Kim was transitioning from his role as a military commander to his new position as head of the peacekeeping force. His job was no longer to wage war, but to prevent wars from starting. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we have received another request from the Outer Rim territories. They want human peacekeepers to help resolve a trade dispute." "Send Captain Yoon's squadron," Admiral Kim decided, "and make sure they understand that we are there to mediate, not to impose solutions." This was the new way. Instead of strong species forcing their will on weaker ones, conflicts were resolved through negotiation and compromise. The human approach of protecting the innocent, while respecting different cultures, was spreading throughout the galaxy. Captain Jae Sung-yoon was now one of the most respected peacekeepers in the galaxy. His fair treatment of former enemies had earned him trust from species that had once feared humans. Even former Dominion officers who had committed no crimes often requested his help in adjusting to the new order. "Captain," one such officer said during a recent mission, "how do you maintain order without using fear?" "We do not maintain order," Captain Yoon replied. "We help people create order for themselves. When people feel safe and respected, they naturally cooperate with each other." It was a lesson the galaxy was slowly learning on the former Dominion homeworld. Now called Redemption, Commander Vextal was serving his sentence by helping to rebuild a school that had been destroyed during the war. The alien who had once struck a human child was now working alongside the species he had oppressed, learning to treat them as equals. "Why do you not hate me?" he asked a young alien girl whose family had been enslaved by the Dominion. "My mother says that hating people makes you become like them," the girl replied. "I do not want to become like the old Dominion." Vextal worked in silence for the rest of the day, thinking about the girl's words. He was beginning to understand why the humans had won the war. They fought not from hatred, but from love for their children and all innocent beings. Dr. Sujin Lee had become the director of the new Galactic Medical Exchange, sharing human medical knowledge with species throughout the galaxy. Her work treating Hyun Woo had led to breakthroughs in treating injuries across different alien biologies. "Doctor," her assistant said, "we have received a request from the Spiral Arm Worlds. They want to establish a children's hospital using human medical techniques." "Approved immediately," Dr. Lee replied. "And make sure they understand that all children will be treated equally, regardless of their species." The principle of protecting children had become the foundation of the new galactic order. Laws were measured not by their efficiency or tradition, but by how well they protected the innocent. Engineer Eugene Nam was now head of the Galactic Infrastructure Project, helping former Dominion worlds rebuild their societies. The ships she had designed for war were now being converted into tools for construction and exploration. "The irony is not lost on me," she told her team during a planning meeting. "We built these ships to destroy the Dominion's cruelty. Now we use them to build something better." Her latest project was a network of schools throughout the galaxy where children of all species could learn together. The curriculum included not just science and mathematics, but also lessons about treating others with kindness and respect. Colonel Taemin Seo had established the Galactic Peacekeeping Academy, where beings from all species learned to resolve conflicts without violence. His students included former Dominion soldiers who wanted to make amends for their past actions. "The strongest person," he taught his students, "is not the one who can cause the most pain, but the one who can prevent pain from happening." It was a lesson that Hyunwoo Park had taught the galaxy without meaning to intelligence. Director Chang Min-ru now ran the Galactic Information Network, ensuring that all species had access to the same knowledge and communication systems. His work had helped break down the barriers that had once divided different parts of the galaxy. "Information is power," he explained to new graduates of the network, "but only when it is shared freely. Hoarding knowledge leads to the kind of inequality that created the Dominion." Ambassador Yoon Young-oh had become the head of the Galactic Cultural Exchange, helping different species understand and appreciate each other's customs. Her background as a teacher had prepared her well for this role. "We do not need to become the same," she told cultural ambassadors from across the galaxy. "We just need to respect our differences and find common ground in our love for our children." On Earth, President Min-ho Choi was preparing to step down from his position, satisfied that humanity had successfully transitioned from a warrior species back to their preferred role as protectors and diplomats. "Mr. President," his advisor asked, "what do you think is your greatest accomplishment?" President Choi looked out at the construction yards where civilian ships were being built instead of warships. We proved that good people can fight when they must, and then return to being good people when the fighting is done. The most remarkable change was in the children. Across the galaxy, young beings who had grown up under Dominion oppression were now playing together without fear. Schools that had once segregated species now celebrated diversity on Peace Station. HFY Park had become something of a celebrity among the galaxy's children. They wrote to him, visited him, and asked him to speak at their schools. But he remained a normal boy who just wanted to play with his friends. Do you ever regret what happened? A young alien girl asked him during one of his school visits. Hyun-woo thought for a moment. I regret that I was hurt, and I regret that anyone had to fight a war. But I am happy that other children will not be hurt like I was. His simple wisdom had become the guiding principle of the new galaxy, the Galactic. Council's first major decision was to establish the HFY Park Memorial Foundation, dedicated to protecting children of all species throughout the galaxy. The foundation would ensure that no child would ever again face the kind of violence that had started the war. This foundation, Secretary General Do Yun Kim announced, will be our promise to future generations that their innocence will be protected. Above all else, former Supreme Chancellor Thexmar, now serving as a cultural liaison to help former Dominion worlds adjust to democracy, attended the Foundation's opening ceremony. The alien who had once ruled through fear now worked to repair the damage his empire had caused. I was wrong, he said in his speech to the assembly. I believe that strength came from the ability to cause fear. I learned too late that true strength comes from the courage to protect the innocent. Admiral So Young Han had established the Galactic Emergency Response Fleet, ready to provide aid to any world facing natural disasters or other crises. The ships that had once carried weapons of war now carried supplies for relief efforts. Captain Moon Young-an led one such mission to a world devastated by earthquakes. Her crew included beings from dozens of species, a